the arrival of the Solarians. The vastness of space stretched endlessly, a tapestry of stars glimmering like distant candles in an infinite night. Among the glittering constellations, the Galactic Council convened on Zithra Prime, the largest artificial orbital hub ever constructed. Its spires of polished crystal and steel shimmered under the light of 3 suns, reflecting the immense power and influence of the Council that ruled over 1,000 star systems. The Council was unlike anything the universe had ever seen. Members from dozens of intelligent species, each shaped by their unique environments, sat in towering chairs around a circular dais. From the serpentine Tyroex of Varlon, with scales that glimmered in iridescent hues, to Limera of Ashton, whose crystalline form hummed faintly with internal energy, the assembly was a collection of intellect, ambition, and authority. Yet today unease filled the air. It was not the first time they had called an emergency session, but this was different. The reason for their gathering was one that none could fully explain, a species that had confounded the Council since its emergence: humans. Humans were a mystery. Unlike the majority of galactic civilizations, they did not expand aggressively, did not covet power, and did not seek to dominate others through force or cunning. Their curiosity and ingenuity had allowed them to survive against all odds, and their adaptability had made them capable of feats the Council could scarcely comprehend. Yet, unlike other civilizations, they had not petitioned for a place in the Council nor sought recognition as equals. They were observers, travelers, and occasional allies, but always on their own terms. Councillor Tyroex's voice slithered through the chamber like a cold wind. Why have the humans not responded to our invitations? They were present in the outer networks just a decade ago, yet now they remain absent. Why do they ignore us? Limera's crystalline fingers tapped lightly against the table, producing a soft chime that resonated throughout the chamber. It is unlike any species we have known, she said. They do not seek power, yet they wield influence far greater than any empire here. Perhaps their absence is intentional, a statement, not an oversight. The assembly murmured, the sound rising and falling like waves in a turbulent sea. Other councillors voiced their confusion, frustration, and suspicion. The Valtrian delegates demanded an immediate military response, while the Erythrans argued that the humans could be spies, hiding technology far beyond current Council comprehension. Amidst the tension, a transmission arrived, a pulse of energy unlike any standard message protocol. The Council fell silent. The holographic projection in the center of the chamber flickered, and a sleek, silver vessel materialized before them, coasting into view with perfect precision. Its design was unlike any known craft in the galaxy. Smooth, organic curves blending seamlessly with advanced technology that radiated a quiet elegance. This is a Solarian vessel, whispered one of the junior delegates. Yes, Tyroex hissed, his eyes narrowing. They call themselves the Solarians, humans, though I find the term inadequate for such beings. From within the vessel's observation deck emerged the figures of Captain Arlen Voss and Ambassador Selena Kale, humans whose presence had already become legendary in the outer systems. They did not bow, did not speak immediately, and did not display the customary deference the Council expected from new arrivals. Instead, they stood tall, observing the Council with a quiet intensity that unsettled even the most stoic members. Captain Voss's voice finally cut through the silence, calm but commanding. We have arrived not to seek recognition, not to negotiate alliances, and certainly not to compete for dominance. We come to observe, and to remind you that the universe is larger than your councils, your disputes, and your petty wars. A ripple of shock ran through the assembly. Never before had a species addressed the Council with such forthrightness and indifference. Tyroex leaned forward, his forked tongue flicking nervously. Do you understand what you are saying? You step into the very heart of galactic authority and declare independence from it? This is unprecedented. Ambassador Kale's gaze was unwavering, her expression serene yet commanding. Independence is not a declaration. It is a state of being. We have always existed on our own terms, even when your network sought to include us. Our arrival is not a request, it is a statement. Observe us if you wish, but understand this. We answer to no council, no empire, no collective authority. A murmur of disbelief swept through the chamber. Some delegates leaned back, unable to process such audacity. Others, like Limera, studied the humans with fascination rather than fear. Perhaps, she whispered to herself, this is why they confound us. They do not play the game we understand. They create a game of their own. The human's vessel moved gracefully through the holographic chamber, its movements deliberate and unhurried, as if time itself bent to their will. Counselors noted the absence of aggressive posturing, no shields activated, no weapons drawn. And yet, every member felt the weight of authority, not projected by intimidation, but by a calm confidence that suggested they could dominate if they chose, but chose not to. OX banged his clawed hand on the table. They are here, and yet they challenge our very understanding of power. They do not seek to control, yet we feel controlled in their presence. Limera's luminous eyes glimmered. That is the essence of humanity. They do not bend to the will of others, and by refusing to engage they force all of us to confront our own limitations. Observe carefully, Teacher Wax. This is not defiance, this is evolution. As the council debated and argued, Captain Voss and Ambassador Kale did not intervene. They observed the proceedings silently, cataloging the reactions of species, studying political hierarchies, and noting every nuance of council behavior. Their purpose was clear. Humanity had arrived, and yet, in arriving, they were already preparing to leave, not in defeat, but in silent assertion of independence. Outside the chamber, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the politics below. The human's vessel hovered like a sentinel, a quiet reminder that the galaxy contained more than power struggles and dominion. Somewhere deep within the council, a subtle realization began to form. Humans were not merely a species, they were an idea that could not be controlled. And in that moment, the council understood the first truth about humanity. Their arrival was a herald not of conquest but of quiet revolution. The kind that did not roar, did not demand, and did not threaten, but left a permanent mark on every mind that witnessed it. The Solarians had arrived. And the Galactic Council, for the first time in its long history, felt the weight of uncertainty. The silent exodus. The Galactic Council could not shake the image of the Solarian vessel hovering above their chamber. Even after Captain Arlen Voss and Ambassador Selena Kale had departed back into the infinite darkness of space, the counselors felt a lingering unease, a sense that something fundamental had shifted. At first, it seemed like a minor anomaly. A few human trade vessels withdrew from outer system networks. Counselor Tijerwex, ever the skeptic, assumed it was temporary. A minor retreat, he growled, likely a tactical repositioning. No species with such advanced technology disappears without leaving a footprint. But within hours, reports began to flood the Council's data arrays. Human colonies on the fringe worlds had been deactivated. Research outposts vanished without warning. The orbital networks humans once maintained were no longer transmitting signals. Every attempt to contact human command met with a single, disconcerting reality: silence. Counselor Turex slammed his clawed hand onto the metallic table, rattling the chairs around him. This cannot be. They are not responding. Every attempt to communicate has failed. Are we to believe that humanity has vanished without so much as a notice? Limera, the calm crystalline diplomat, leaned forward, her voice resonant yet tranquil. They have not vanished, Tirex. They are choosing not to engage. That is the human way. They do not seek your permission nor validation from the Council. Silence is their strategy, not absence. The assembly erupted. Delegates shouted over one another, some proposing immediate military deployment to locate the humans, others urging caution, warning that any aggressive approach could provoke retaliation from a species they did not fully understand. Amid the chaos, Ambassador Selena Kale and Captain Arlen Voss observed from the outer rim of human-controlled space, far beyond the sensors of any council member. Their home fleets moved quietly, systematically, dismantling the infrastructure that had once linked humanity to the greater galactic community. They did not destroy. They did not attack. They simply withdrawn, erasing the digital footprints, hiding the warp lanes, and slipping into sectors the Council had never mapped. Our presence here is unnecessary, Kale said quietly, watching the holographic projections of Council deliberations. We leave so that they may see the consequences of their expectations. The galaxy will not crumble because of our absence, but the Council must confront its own dependence on human influence. Captain Voss nodded. Humans have always been observers first, participants second. The Council cannot handle the notion that a species can leave without their intervention and still shape outcomes. That will be the lesson. Meanwhile, in the Council chambers, panic escalated. Councillor Minner of Erythra, whose bioluminescent skin shimmered with every pulse of anger, demanded immediate action. Deploy fleets. Block the warp lanes. Find them. No species has ever withdrawn so completely without consequences. Ox hissed. And what of diplomacy? Should we send emissaries? Messages? Please? Humanity does not respond to entreaties. Limmer's voice cut through the din, cold and precise. Exactly. And that is the point. For once, the Council is powerless in the face of a species that refuses to play by its rules. Observe, learn, but do not act rashly. Weeks turned into months. The Council's fleets scoured the outer systems, sending scanning arrays into deep space, attempting to trace the elusive human vessels. Each expedition returned empty-handed, the humans moving farther into the unknown, leaving behind only the faintest whispers of their existence. Within the human fleets, life continued, but it was quiet, deliberate, and purposeful. Colonies on distant planets grew, self-sustaining and independent. Research continued, not for fame or recognition, but for knowledge and survival. Humanity had learned to thrive in silence, to walk away from entanglements without fear or hesitation. Captain Voss and Ambassador Kale observed every action, noting how alien societies reacted to humanity's retreat. Notice the pattern, Kale said, her eyes reflecting the distant light of a newborn star. Their panic is not because humans are absent. It is because the Council realizes that even absent, humans are still shaping events. They cannot accept that influence without control. Back on Zithra Prime, the Council was fraying at the edges. Factions formed and dissolved, alliances shifted, and debates raged over the proper response. Military leaders demanded escalation, diplomats urged caution, scholars warned that misunderstanding humanity's intent could destabilize the galaxy. Terox, exhausted and frustrated, turned to Limera. This is chaos. Their silence drives us mad. How can a species depart so completely, yet still hold power over us? Limera's crystalline form shimmered faintly, as if illuminated by some inner wisdom. Because they have never measured power by dominance, Teacher Wyax. Humans are free, and their freedom casts a shadow over those who insist on chains. Their withdrawal is not a loss, it is a mirror reflecting our weaknesses. The realization spread slowly, grudgingly, through the Council. Humanity's absence forced introspection. Every decision, every trade agreement, every political maneuver had relied, often unknowingly, on human influence. And now, that influence persisted without their participation. In the silent reaches of space, humanity continued its quiet exodus. No speeches, no battles, no proclamations, just steady, unwavering progress. Human vessels glided past asteroid belts, through nebulae, and into sectors unnamed on any galactic map. Scientists charted new stars, engineers constructed self-sustaining habitats, and explorers scouted worlds that even the Council had deemed uninhabitable. They left behind a message, simple and profound, embedded in every abandoned station and empty communication array. We walk away not in anger or fear but in choice. Observe. Learn. Do not mistake our silence for absence. When the Council finally intercepted the message, it was too late to demand explanations, too late to enforce their authority. Every species, every counselor, every observer realized the truth. Humanity had chosen autonomy over recognition, and in doing so, they had reshaped the rules of galactic existence. Terox leaned back, his serpentine form slumping in defeat. They are gone. And yet, they are everywhere. How can this be? Limera's voice resonated softly, almost a whisper, because humans are not defined by presence or absence. They are defined by intent, and their intent is unshakable. They leave not to vanish, but to remind the galaxy of a principle you cannot control: freedom. And so, humanity continued its silent exodus. The Galactic Council, once unchallenged in authority, was left to navigate a galaxy where the most influential species had chosen to walk away without a word. The echoes of their departure would resonate for centuries, a quiet but undeniable reminder that true strength sometimes lies not in power or conquest, but in the courage to leave on one's own terms. The stars themselves seemed to honor the humans' passage, their paths illuminated by silent light, guiding explorers and dreamers alike, far beyond the reach of any council, empire, or war. The Council's panic. The silence was deafening. Months had passed since humanity began its quiet exodus, and the Galactic Council found itself teetering on the brink of disorder. In every council chamber, from the glittering halls of Zithra Prime to the remote orbital stations of Orinthia, delegates scrambled to make sense of the human withdrawal. Councillor Terox of Varlon paced furiously, his long tail lashing against the polished floor as he barked at anyone who dared oppose him. This is madness. No species has ever vanished so completely without leaving a trail. How are we supposed to negotiate, trade, or strategize if they refuse to communicate? The Valtrian fleet commanders demanded immediate action. Deploy our reconnaissance fleets, one snarled. Sweep every known human system. Block every warp lane they might use. Capture them if necessary. HFY raised a clawed hand, but even he hesitated. There was no precedent for such a response. Humanity did not respond to threats, did not yield to force, and did not play by the Council's rules. Any attempt at aggression risked provoking a species whose capabilities were poorly understood and whose ingenuity was legendary. Across the room, Limera of Ashton observed the chaos with an eerie calm. Her crystalline form glimmered faintly as she spoke, her voice resonant and precise. Futility drives your panic. The humans are not lost, they are beyond your influence. Your fleets, your demands, your protocols, they are irrelevant to them. You fear what you cannot control. Councillor Minner of Erythra, whose bioluminescent skin pulsed rapidly with every beat of anger, snapped, "Irrelevant? Irrelevant? Entire sectors depend on human technology and trade. Their silence threatens our economies, our research, and our political stability." Limera tilted her head slightly. And yet life continues. Trade finds new pathways, research adapts, and systems learn to operate without human oversight. That is the lesson. You are dependent on their cooperation, yet they are independent. It is not their absence that destabilizes you, it is your inability to comprehend a species that does not seek validation. HFY recoiled at the words, but the truth was undeniable. Across the galaxy, human absence was causing ripple effects that no counselor could have anticipated. Mining operations faltered where humans had once provided logistical support. Scientific collaborations stalled when human researchers withdrew from interstellar projects. Communication networks that linked hundreds of star systems lay dormant, and no council edict could restart them. Council chambers erupted into arguments, and alliances fractured as quickly as they had formed. The Vorlons accused the Erythrans of hoarding intelligence, the Zithrans demanded sanctions, and younger, less influential delegates whispered about defecting to new coalitions. Every faction sought a solution, yet no solution existed. Humanity had removed itself from the equation entirely. Meanwhile, humanity's fleets moved silently through uncharted sectors, leaving no trail for even the most advanced scanners. Captain Arlen Voss oversaw the operation with meticulous care. His crew charted unknown star systems, tested sustainable colonies, and refined advanced propulsion techniques, all without drawing attention to themselves. Ambassador Selena Kale monitored the Council's reaction through secure observation channels. "Notice," she said, pointing to a holographic display of the Council chambers, "how every decision, every argument, revolves around what we are not doing. Our absence is a mirror, revealing their weaknesses." Voss nodded. "They panic because they cannot understand a species that chooses autonomy over influence. That is the power of humanity. Our strength is in our independence, not in conquest." Back at Zithra Prime, Councillor TRX convened an emergency summit, calling for extraordinary measures. "We will not allow this to continue. Mobilize the fleets, intercept human colonies, and demand answers." Limera's crystalline eyes glimmered with faint amusement. "And what will you demand? Compliance from a species that does not recognize your authority? Cooperation from a people who walk away at their own will? You cannot coerce humans, they do not bend, they do not yield, and they do not fear. Your threats are empty shadows in an empty hall." As council debates raged, human technology quietly continued to shape the galaxy. Automated research stations humbly maintained themselves, robotic drones constructed new habitats on previously uninhabitable worlds, and colonies developed independent economies capable of sustaining themselves without council interference. The influence of humanity, though unseen, was undeniable. In the council chambers, the panic escalated. Factions formed, alliances shifted, and debates turned bitter. Some councillors suggested that humans were spies, secretly manipulating galactic events while hiding from view. Others feared that human absence was a precursor to something larger, a silent coup that could unravel the delicate balance of power the council had maintained for millennia. Amidst the growing hysteria, Limera addressed the chamber. Her voice carried a rare authority, compelling even the most stubborn delegates to pause. "Observe carefully. The humans have not acted against you. They have merely chosen to leave. It is your fear, your expectation of control, that causes this chaos. Humanity demonstrates a principle far beyond conquest or governance: the power to exist freely without validation." HFY's claw trembled. "But their absence threatens us. Entire systems rely on human infrastructure and innovation." Limera's gaze remained steady. "And yet, those systems adapt. The galaxy continues. Their influence persists even when they withdraw. That is the nature of true strength. They do not conquer, it is the council that cannot cope without their cooperation. Humanity is a test, Durex, and you are failing it. As the weeks turned into months, the council's panic reached a fever pitch. Fleets scoured sectors, emissaries traveled to distant systems, and intelligence networks strained under the pressure of locating a species that did not wish to be found. And still, humanity moved quietly, deliberately, and independently through the galaxy, leaving behind not destruction or conquest, but a lesson in autonomy. Captain Voss, standing aboard the bridge of his command vessel, gazed at the stars stretching before him. They cannot understand that strength does not require domination, he said softly. All they know is control, influence, and fear. Humanity thrives where others falter because we define strength differently. Freedom is our greatest weapon, and we wield it silently. Kale nodded. Let them panic. Let them unravel. The galaxy will adjust, and in time the lesson will be clear. True power is not imposed, it is chosen. Back in Zithra Prime, as council chambers descended into further chaos, a subtle, reluctant understanding began to take root among a few observant delegates. Humanity's absence was not a weakness, it was a force that could not be ignored. And for the first time, the council realized that the most profound influence did not come from presence, obedience, or participation. It came from the courage to walk away in silence and remain unbound. For humanity, the exodus continued. Stars and planets that had once been maps and coordinates for council fleets became homes for explorers and thinkers. Trade networks were replaced by self-sufficient colonies. Knowledge advanced quietly, deliberately, and purposefully. And through it all, the humans maintained a single, unbroken principle: freedom without validation, progress without interference, and existence without apology. The Galactic Council could rage, deploy fleets, or debate endlessly, but one truth became unavoidable: humanity had walked away, and the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity's quiet message. Months had passed since humanity began its silent withdrawal, and the Galactic Council had descended into a maelstrom of confusion and panic. Fleet deployments had scoured every known human system. Intelligence networks strained to track the invisible fleets, but every effort ended in frustration. Every attempt at communication, holographic messages, encrypted transmissions, even the most sophisticated quantum signals, returned nothing. Then, as if the galaxy itself held its breath, a single message arrived. It was not transmitted in the usual ways. There was no fanfare, no demand, no declaration. Instead, a soft pulse of energy, faint yet unmistakable, flickered across every council monitoring station simultaneously. The message, simple and unassuming, materialized in elegant holographic script. We leave not because we are weak but because we choose to be free. Do not mistake silence for absence. Observe and learn. The council fell silent. For the first time in history, every delegate, every leader, every strategist froze in place. Not out of awe nor fear, but because the words contained a truth they could not argue with. It was not a threat. It was not arrogance. It was a statement. A quiet, unyielding assertion of autonomy that shattered every assumption they had held about influence, power, and control. Councillor Truex's eyes narrowed, and his tail lashed nervously. This is audacious. They speak to us without seeking permission, without acknowledging our authority. They do not fear us. Limera's crystalline form shimmered faintly, the light from her inner core reflecting the council chamber's glow. Indeed. And that is precisely why this message is so powerful. They do not act out of fear, ambition, or desire for recognition. They act because they have chosen their own path. That choice alone unsettles every system in this council. Minor of Erythra's bioluminescent skin pulsed rapidly as he raged. We cannot allow this. Every sector depends on their fleets, their technology, their guidance. They abandon us, and yet they dictate our every move through their absence. We must respond. Limera's voice cut sharply through the chaos. And what will you do, Minor? Threaten a species that does not engage with your threats? Attack a civilization that refuses to fight? Humanity's power is not in fleets or armies, it is in autonomy. And autonomy cannot be bargained, coerced, or destroyed. Across the vast expanse of human-controlled space, Captain Arlen Voss observed the Council's reaction through encrypted monitoring arrays. He turned to Ambassador Selena Kale, who stood beside him, her expression serene and focused. They see the message, Voss said quietly. And they panic because they cannot understand it. Humanity has never demanded obedience or recognition, yet the Council reacts as though our absence threatens them. That is the point, they are not threatened by us. They are threatened by a principle they cannot control. Kale nodded. Observe them. Let them struggle with what they cannot dominate. The galaxy will learn that influence does not require participation, and strength does not require force. Back on Zithra Prime, the Council attempted to dissect the message. Linguists, strategists, and diplomats analyzed every word, every nuance, every implied meaning. Yet all they could conclude was that humanity had acted deliberately, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Humans were leaving not as a surrender, not as a retreat, but as a sovereign choice. Counselor Teacherwax growled. Their message, it implies that their absence is deliberate. That they are testing us, mocking our need for control. Limmer's crystalline voice rang with quiet authority. No, Teacherwax. They are not mocking you. They are reminding you of your dependence on their participation, your reliance on their guidance. And in that reminder lies a lesson. True power is self-determined, not conferred by others. Across the galaxy, human fleets continued their silent voyage, yet not aimlessly. Each movement was calculated, each colony established with precision, each system prepared to operate independently. Humans dismantled any reliance on the Council, leaving behind self-sustaining networks of knowledge, technology, and governance. They did not conquer. They did not interfere. They simply existed on their own terms, demonstrating a model of civilization that was as subtle as it was profound. On Zithra Prime, the Council's panic reached a crescendo. Factions splintered, arguments grew bitter, and the once mighty assembly found itself paralyzed. Without human participation, trade agreements faltered, interstellar research programs slowed, and diplomatic negotiations stalled. Humanity's message, though silent in tone, had created ripples far more powerful than any war could. Minner, furious, turned to Teacherwax. We must act. Send fleets. Demand compliance. Threaten them if necessary. Teacherwax shook his head, his expression one of dawning realization. No, Minner. That is exactly what they expect you to do. Humanity's power is not in confrontation. It is in freedom. They leave the galaxy to its chaos, but they leave a truth behind. Strength is not imposed, it is chosen. Limmer's luminous eyes swept across the council chamber. For centuries we have measured civilizations by conquest, influence, and control. Yet here is a species that demonstrates something different. Observe, record, and learn. Humanity's quiet message is the most potent communication any civilization has ever delivered, the affirmation of freedom and self-determination. In the human fleets, the message sent to the Council was discussed among the crew. Do you think they understand? Asked Lieutenant Darren Vale, a human officer observing the Council's panic. Captain Voss smiled faintly. They may never truly understand. But that is not the point. We are not here to be understood or feared. We are here to exist on our own terms. That alone changes everything. Ambassador Kale added, they will debate, argue, and plan endlessly. And in that process they will be forced to confront their own limitations. That is the legacy of this message. Quiet, deliberate, and enduring. Back in the council chambers, Durex finally sat, exhausted, realizing the futility of his anger. They leave and yet, they remain. Everywhere we turn we feel their influence though they are not present. How is this possible? Limmer's voice, soft yet penetrating, offered the final answer. Because influence is not dictated by presence. It is dictated by principle, by intent, by the courage to act according to one's own values. Humanity walks away, but the echo of their choice resonates louder than any council decree. And so, the Galactic Council faced a truth it had never encountered before. A species could walk away in silence, refuse to participate, and yet remain the most influential force in the galaxy. Humanity had left, but its message endured, a quiet, unwavering testament to the power of choice, freedom, and self-determination. The stars, indifferent yet eternal, bore witness to the Exodus. Humanity's message, delivered without pomp or threat, would resonate through the ages, challenging every civilization to reconsider the nature of strength, authority, and influence. Captain Voss looked out at the stars from the bridge of his command vessel and spoke softly, more to himself than anyone else. We leave quietly, but the galaxy will never forget. That is the power of humanity, not in war, not in conquest, but in choice. That is the true measure of our legacy. And somewhere, far across the void, the Council would remember the message, long after humans had disappeared from their sight. We leave not because we are weak but because we choose to be free. Do not mistake silence for absence. Observe and learn. The universe had been reminded that freedom, not fear, defines strength. Humanity's quiet message had changed everything. Ripples across the stars. The galaxy had never been so quiet, yet so unsettled. Humanity's departure had left a vacuum, one the Galactic Council struggled to comprehend. Systems that had relied on human trade, innovation, and diplomacy were beginning to feel the consequences of their absence. Supply chains faltered, research initiatives stalled, and minor conflicts erupted where humans had once been the unseen stabilizing force. Council chambers across the galaxy buzzed with frustration, fear, and disbelief. Delegates no longer argued solely over policy or resources, they argued over existence itself. How could a species that had withdrawn entirely still wield such influence? How could humans, without fleets in the Council, without emissaries, without participation, continue to shape the fate of thousands of worlds? Councillor Tiroux of Varlon slumped in his chair, exhausted. They are gone, and yet, everywhere. Every decision we make, every trade agreement, every diplomatic negotiation, humanity's absence dictates our choices as surely as their presence ever did. Limera, ever calm, observed the turmoil with her crystalline form softly pulsating in the chamber light. That is the nature of true influence, Tiroux. Power is not measured by dominance or presence. It is measured by the ability to shape outcomes without imposing control. Humanity has left, yet it remains the standard against which every civilization must measure itself. Across the outer systems, news of humanity's quiet exodus spread through whispered transmissions and fragmented reports. Merchants speculated about lost trade routes. Scientists debated how colonies once supported by human technology could continue independently. Young civilizations began questioning their own reliance on the Council and the Solarians. Everywhere the same truth echoed. Humanity's absence was felt more than its presence ever had been. On the distant planet of Erythra Prime, scholars convened to study human systems. Their bioluminescent notes glimmered under the light of twin suns as they debated. The humans do not conquer, yet their colonies thrive. They do not negotiate, yet trade adjusts. They do not participate, yet alliances falter without them. What power is this? Back in human-controlled sectors, Captain Arlen Voss watched the Council's turmoil through encrypted observation arrays. Look at them, he said to Ambassador Selena Kale, struggling to comprehend what they cannot dominate. Humanity does not seek control, yet the galaxy bends around us because we act independently. Kale nodded. Influence without engagement. That is the hallmark of our species. Observe, adapt, survive, not because others demand it but because we choose it. Meanwhile, in sectors previously reliant on human infrastructure, the consequences were becoming tangible. Starports once bustling with human trade saw delays and shortages. Communication hubs without human management struggled to maintain efficiency. Colonies adapted slowly, forced to innovate and find self-sufficiency. What had once been dependency became resilience, though at a cost as civilizations were compelled to think, act, and survive without guidance. Even within the Council, subtle shifts began to occur. Some factions began to recognize the wisdom of humanity's approach. A young delegate from Ashton Minor, inspired by Limera's observations, suggested reforms. Perhaps we have measured civilization by the wrong metrics. Presence is not power. Obedience is not influence. Look at the humans, they walk away and yet the galaxy bends around them. We should study that, not condemn it. Others resisted, clinging to fear and habit. The Valtrians argued for fleet mobilizations. The Erythrans demanded human oversight. The Council remained a storm of indecision, torn between the old rules of dominance and the new reality of humanity's silent influence. Across the stars, human colonies thrived quietly. On Leora 4, engineers completed a self-sustaining energy grid that drew directly from the planet's core, independent of Council technology. On Vera Minor, scientists launched research into bioadaptive habitats that could survive in harsh, previously uninhabitable environments. Each achievement was modest, invisible to outsiders, yet collectively, they demonstrated a civilization capable of existing without reliance or recognition. Captain Voss surveyed these developments through a network of observation drones. Every world we touch becomes self-sufficient, he said. We do not control, we do not govern, we create the conditions for independence. And the galaxy struggles to understand it. That is our power. Kale added, the Council is unraveling because it measures strength the wrong way. Humanity's influence is not a matter of fear or coercion. It is an example. Systems adapt not because they are forced but because they are inspired, or, at least, compelled by absence. That is the quiet ripple we send across the stars. Meanwhile, stories of humanity's independence began to circulate among younger civilizations. Merchants, explorers, and diplomats spoke in hushed tones about the Solarians who walked away yet left a lasting mark. Children on distant colonies grew up hearing tales of humans who charted the stars not for glory or dominance, but for knowledge, growth, and freedom. The Council's panic gradually evolved into reluctant admiration. Counselor TX, once frantic and demanding, now mused aloud, "They are gone, yet their absence corrects our systems, challenges our assumptions, and forces us to evolve. They do not conquer, yet they teach lessons we cannot ignore." Limera, ever serene, added softly, "The greatest civilizations do not impose their will. They endure, adapt, and inspire. Humanity has left quietly, yet in leaving, it reshapes the very foundation of galactic order." And so, humanity's quiet exodus sent ripples across the galaxy. Systems learned to operate independently. Young civilizations discovered resilience in the face of absence. The Council, once certain of its authority, was forced to confront its limitations. Every decision, every strategy, every alliance was now made in the shadow of a species that refused to play by their rules, yet defined the rules all the same. Captain Voss, standing aboard the flagship Eclipse, gazed at the stars stretching into infinity. "We are not here to rule," he said. "We are here to show that strength comes from choice, not control. They may not understand it now, but the ripples of our existence will endure far longer than fleets, wars, or empires ever could." Kale smiled faintly. "And the Council will remember. Every failed plan, every argument, every lost alliance. They will know that the humans who walk away quietly are a force greater than any that seeks to dominate." In the vast, silent stretches of space, the Solarians moved steadily, unobserved yet profoundly impactful. Each new colony, each technological advance, each quietly maintained outpost was a testament to a simple, revolutionary idea. Freedom is stronger than fear, independence is more enduring than influence, and a species that chooses its own path can shape a galaxy without ever engaging in its politics. And somewhere, far across the Council's fractured networks, a few delegates began to whisper, almost in awe, "Perhaps this is what it means to be truly powerful, quietly, deliberately, and without the need for recognition." The galaxy had changed, subtly yet irrevocably. The humans had left. Yet their influence, their example, and their quiet defiance continued to ripple across the stars, touching every world, challenging every counselor, and inspiring every civilization to reconsider what it truly meant to be strong, the breaking point. The Galactic Council had never faced such turmoil. Months of human absence had fractured alliances, disrupted trade, and created tension in every corner of known space. Fleets scoured empty sectors, diplomats argued endlessly, and intelligence networks strained to track what could not be tracked. Humanity's quiet exodus had left the Council reeling, but now, it was approaching something far more dangerous: the breaking point. Counselor T-Rex of Varlon slammed his clawed hands against the Council table, rattling the chairs and sending holographic displays spinning. "We are unraveling. Entire sectors depend on human oversight. Research programs collapse. Trade is halted. Alliances crumble. We must act now before this silence consumes us." Counselor Minner of Erythra glared, his bioluminescent skin pulsing rapidly. "An act how to wax? They are not here. There is no fleet to engage, no station to seize, no treaty to enforce. Humanity has walked away. What can we do against a species that refuses to play by our rules?" The room erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, some demanding fleet mobilizations, others urging restraint, and a few whispering fearfully about the collapse of galactic order. Even the most seasoned counselors were grasping at straws, unsure how to maintain control over a galaxy whose most influential species had simply withdrawn. Limera of Ashton rose, her crystalline body gleaming with a faint inner light. Her voice, calm yet penetrating, cut through the pandemonium. "This council teeters on the edge not because of the humans' actions, but because of your inability to comprehend them. They are not absent in the way you fear. They are absent in a way that forces you to confront your own weaknesses." Erwex snarled, frustrated beyond measure. "Weakness? We are the Council. The most powerful coalition in the galaxy. How can the absence of a single species, no matter how clever, bring us to this state?" Limera's eyes glittered like twin stars. "It is not a single species, Teacher Wax. It is a civilization that has chosen autonomy over recognition, independence over influence. Humanity's absence exposes the dependency you have cultivated, the fragility of your alliances, the illusions of your control. You are not powerless because of them, you are powerless because you cannot accept that strength exists beyond your rules. Across the galaxy, human fleets continued to operate silently. Colonies thrived without oversight, research programs advanced independently, and fleets charted sectors that even the Council had never fully mapped. Humanity had no desire to dominate, no need for recognition, and no fear of consequence. They simply existed, quietly, deliberately, and fully autonomous. Captain Arlen Voss stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, watching the holographic projection of the Council's chaos. "Do you see it?" he asked Ambassador Selena Kale. "They panic not because we are a threat but because we refuse to be one. Our absence leaves them with no enemy, yet no solution. That is the essence of our power." Kale nodded. Influence without engagement. Strength without aggression. Humanity demonstrates that true power is self-determined. The Council cannot endure this because it has always measured strength the wrong way. Back in Zithra Prime, the Council chambers were descending into open conflict. Delegates shouted accusations, alliances splintered mid-discussion, and military commanders threatened mutiny against any leader who failed to respond to the human exodus. Every decision was paralyzed by fear. Fear of absence, fear of failure, fear of being exposed as incapable of governing a galaxy that had grown dependent on a species that no longer sought approval. The breaking point came when a fleet commander from Varlon reported, with visible panic, that human colonies had begun to bypass traditional trade routes entirely, creating self-sufficient supply networks that required no Council oversight. Resources once tightly controlled by the Council were now flowing independently. "It is impossible," HFY shouted. "They do not communicate, yet they disrupt everything we have built." Limra's voice, calm but undeniable, resonated through the chamber. "This is not disruption. This is evolution. Humanity does not require your oversight, and yet the galaxy adapts. They leave but they shape reality. They do not fight you yet they teach you. And in doing so they expose the limitations of your power." The Council paused as if struck by a collective realization. Slowly, unease transformed into reluctant understanding. Humanity had never sought to dominate, but their independence forced every civilization to confront its own reliance on external validation. Every failed negotiation, every crumbling alliance, every stalled initiative became evidence that the Council's authority was not absolute. Ox slumped in his chair, exhausted, his tail coiling around his feet. They walk away and yet everything bends in their shadow. How can a species wield influence without presence, command without engagement? Limra's form glimmered softly. Because power is not measured by force or participation. It is measured by the ability to exist on your own terms and leave consequences in your absence. That is what humanity demonstrates. That is why the Council breaks. Not because they are strong, but because you are unprepared to face a species that does not need you. Elsewhere, in human-controlled space, the Solarians advanced steadily. Colonies became self-reliant, fleets explored sectors unmapped by any other civilization, and technology advanced quietly yet profoundly. Humanity had not abandoned responsibility, they had redefined it. By walking away, they had created autonomous systems capable of thriving without interference, demonstrating a model of civilization that challenged the very foundations of galactic governance. Captain Voss, observing the ripples of Council panic, spoke softly to Kale. "They will never admit it, but the Council has learned more from our absence than they ever did from our presence. Every panic, every failed attempt to control, every debate they cannot resolve, these are lessons we leave behind." Kale smiled. "And that is the point. Influence is not given, it is earned through action, or in our case through deliberate inaction. Humanity's power lies in its ability to choose, and in that choice the galaxy is forever changed." Back in Zithra Prime, counselors debated furiously, yet beneath the shouting and accusations, a quiet truth began to emerge. Humanity had achieved what no other civilization had. It had become the measuring stick for all others without even trying. The Council could neither command nor suppress the humans. Their withdrawal was a mirror reflecting every weakness, every dependency, and every assumption the Council had made over centuries. In a rare moment of silence, Limra observed the chamber, her voice almost a whisper, "They do not need us." And that is the realization we all must accept. Humanity has walked away in silence, and the Council, for the first time in its history, faces the limits of its own authority. And so, the breaking point was reached, not with weapons, nor with rebellion, nor with conquest, but with a quiet, unassailable truth. A species could leave, refuse to engage, and yet remain the most influential force in the galaxy simply by being free. Captain Voss gazed at the stars beyond his ship, thinking of the Council's turmoil. They will recover eventually, he said. Some will learn. Some will resist. But the lesson endures. Freedom, choice, and independence are stronger than any fleet, any council, any empire. Kale nodded. The galaxy will change because we walked away. Not by force, not by threat, but by example. And that is the legacy of humanity, silent, deliberate, and unyielding. The Council, fractured yet slowly awakening to the truth, would never be the same. Humanity had revealed a principle the galaxy could not ignore. True strength comes not from domination, but from the courage to choose one's own path, and to walk it quietly, without demand, without fear, and without apology. The stars themselves seemed to bear witness, as though the universe recognized a force beyond politics, fleets, or wars. Humanity had reached the pinnacle of influence, not by presence but by deliberate absence, and the ripples of that choice would resonate across the galaxy for generations to come. Legacy of silence. Centuries had passed since humanity began its quiet exodus, and the galaxy had changed in ways few could have predicted. The Galactic Council, once a symbol of authority and control, had endured wars, treaties, and upheavals, but nothing had shaken it as profoundly as the absence of humans. Council chambers across the stars were no longer dominated by frantic debates about human fleets or human trade. Instead, a new awareness had settled over the delegates. Humanity's departure had left a vacuum, yes, but it had also left a lesson, one written not in fire or conquest but in silence and choice. Councillor Tiroux of Varlon, now older and more reflective, addressed the assembly. For decades we sought to control, to influence, to manage the systems humans once touched. Yet in their absence, we have discovered that we were the ones bound by dependence. Their withdrawal did not weaken the galaxy, it strengthened it. Systems adapt, civilizations endure, and knowledge continues, without our interference. Limera of Ashton nodded, her crystalline form gleaming like a prism under Zithra Prime's twin suns. The humans did not seek to dominate. They did not impose fear or expectation. They acted according to their principles, and in doing so, they became the standard against which all civilizations measure themselves. Their influence is invisible yet undeniable, pervasive yet non-intrusive. It is a legacy few can comprehend and none can replicate. Across the stars, humanity continued its quiet journey. Colonies that had once been dependent on the Council's networks now thrived independently. Scientists unlocked new technologies, engineers constructed habitats that could survive the harshest environments, and explorers charted star systems previously untouched by intelligent life. All of it was accomplished without fleets of warships, without political maneuvering, and without recognition from the Council that once sought to bind them. Captain Arlen Voss, now regarded as one of the greatest leaders in human history, stood aboard the flagship Eclipse, gazing at the constellations stretching endlessly before him. Beside him, Ambassador Selena Kale observed the quiet colonies that had blossomed under humanity's careful guidance. "We never sought to control the galaxy," Voss said softly. "We never imposed our will or demanded acknowledgement. And yet, by existing on our own terms, we have changed it forever. Our legacy is not in fleets or conquest, it is in freedom, in choice, and in example." Kale smiled faintly. "The Council now understands in part what we have always known. Influence is not dictated by participation, strength is not measured by dominance. Humanity's power lies in the courage to leave, to create, and to thrive without apology." Back within the Galactic Council, new generations of delegates studied human philosophy, technology, and history. Young species, inspired by humanity's example, began to experiment with independence and self-governance, creating colonies and networks that could operate without reliance on the Council's authority. Even the most rigid counselors could not deny the truth. Humanity had rewritten the rules of civilization by refusing to play the game at all. Councillor Tiroux, now wise and reflective, addressed the assembly one final time. "We sought to control a species that could not be controlled. We feared absence, misunderstanding presence, and underestimated independence. Humanity has shown us that true civilization is not measured by influence over others, but by the ability to exist freely, to innovate relentlessly, and to choose one's path without seeking permission." Limera's voice, soft and melodic, echoed across the chamber. Their departure was not a loss. It was a gift. Humanity has left the galaxy better than it found it, not by dominating it but by inspiring it. Systems adapt. Knowledge endures. life continues. And in every world touched by their example, civilizations have learned what it truly means to be free. Across the human colonies, celebrations were quiet but meaningful. Children learned of a species that had once walked among the stars, not as conquerors, but as examples of what it meant to be autonomous, resourceful, and resilient. Engineers, explorers, and scholars passed down stories of silent fleets that reshaped entire sectors by their absence. In every corner of the galaxy, humans left traces, not of power but of possibility. Captain Voss addressed the bridge crew of the Eclipse, his voice calm and steady. Remember this: the greatest influence is the one you do not demand. The greatest legacy is the one you leave quietly without fanfare. We are not remembered for what we conquered, but for the freedom we maintained and inspired. Humanity's true strength is in walking away, yet leaving everything changed behind. Ambassador Kale added, and that is the lesson the galaxy must carry forward. That power lies not in domination but in the courage to define your own path. Humans did not impose, they inspired. They did not intervene, yet their choices continue to shape every civilization that looks to the stars. The Galactic Council, once a monolithic institution, had transformed. It still governed, still mediated disputes, and still maintained order, but it did so with a newfound humility. Humanity's example had taught them that authority was fragile, that dependence was dangerous, and that freedom, when exercised deliberately, could be more powerful than fleets, armies, or edicts. And so, in the quiet reaches of space, humanity continued to explore, build, and thrive. Their ships glided past nebulae, their colonies grew on barren worlds, and their scientists unlocked secrets of the universe, all without seeking recognition. They had left the Council behind, but the Council, and the galaxy, would never forget them. The stars, indifferent yet eternal, bore witness to humanity's legacy. It was not written in conquest, nor in war, nor in the loud proclamations of empire. It was written in silence, in choice, in freedom, a quiet, unyielding testament to what it truly meant to be a human civilization. And somewhere, in the uncharted expanse of the galaxy, the humans looked back, not with arrogance or pride, but with the gentle certainty that their path was their own. They had walked away from the noise, the politics, and the expectations, leaving the universe not empty but forever changed. For humanity had achieved the greatest legacy of all: to exist on its own terms, to inspire others without demanding it, and to leave a mark that would echo across the stars for all time. The galaxy would remember. The Council would adapt. Civilizations would evolve. And in every corner of space, the silent footsteps of humanity would continue to guide, challenge, and inspire, for all eternity.